Crocheting 101, How to Crochet for Complete Beginners. Brought to you by Club Crochet and produced by Louie's Loops. That's me. How to sew pieces together. Sewing pieces together is important for many reasons, like when you need to seam the end of a beanie brim or connect a bunch of granny squares for a blanket, which is a pretty simple technique. You can also sew together pieces of an amigurumi, which is a slightly different technique that I'll also be teaching you. In this section, I won't be teaching you how to sew a piece closed though. That's going to be in the next section titled Sewing Closed, and it's a different technique altogether. Sewing two flat pieces together. For this method, you'll be connecting flat pieces, such as granny squares, together. First, make sure that the tail end of one of your pieces is pretty long. If you cut them all too short or already hid in the ends, that's no big deal. You can just use a new strand of yarn instead. If you did cut the tail of one of the ends or just don't want to use it, anchor a new strand of yarn down by sewing the same two beginning seam stitches multiple times to hold the yarn in place. Don't forget to sew in that straggling tail though. To actually sew pieces together, I usually use a simple whip stitch, meaning going around and around the stitches. It's simple and easy, but not always the prettiest finish, especially if you're using a different color. There's also this method called the invisible seam. For this technique, after anchoring your yarn, you go right into the center of the top of the first stitch on side A and come out through the second stitch on side A, and then go back and do the same on the first and second stitch on side B. Then into the third and fourth stitches on side A, and the third and fourth stitches on side B. You'll continue this zipper effect going back and forth, making somewhat of a ladder all the way to the end. Be sure to tighten the seam every few stitches. Knot the yarn at the end by going around the final stitch and then through the loop you just made. And make sure to hide the tail into the piece when you finish. Sewing together amigurumi. Okay, so this is going to be slightly different. Here we want to add this arm onto the body of our character. Again, having a long tail will make things slightly easier, but not necessary because you can just use an extra strand of yarn instead. Find where you're going to want to have the arm sewn on and how many stitches you have to work with. Here I have 6 stitches around and a long tail. Because there are 6 stitches for the last round of the arm, when we sew it onto the body, we want to find the 6 places the stitch are going to go. Try to find your 6 stitch spots before you begin sewing it together. Here's where I'm choosing. Thread the tail with a needle and go into the first stitch on the body and then come out where you want the second stitch. Then go into the stitch on the arm from the outside and back into the stitch on the body where you came out. And then come out from the next spot around on the body and continue this pattern. The last stitch should come out of the body exactly where the first stitch went in. You can knot it on the inside to make sure it doesn't come undone. It's going to be a lot easier if the body isn't stuffed and sewn closed, but not impossible to do. If you already have the body sewn shut, come out somewhere close to the end so that you can knot it down and stuff the knot back in. If you have to sew two things on, just make sure both the tails come out from the same stitch, then knot them together and stuff them back into the body. And that's how I sew amigurumi pieces together. Sometimes it can be a little confusing and take a few tries, so be patient. Stuffing and sewing something closed is a lot easier though, and more straightforward, which we'll be learning next. Crocheting 101 is brought to you by Club Crochet, a club made specifically for hookers. It offers new weekly patterns and projects, including full video tutorials, monthly kits with all the materials needed mailed directly to your door, classes and groups made to learn new techniques and make new friends, and more. Plans start at only $5 a month. Get hooked at clubcrochet.com. Thank you so much for watching. Crocheting 101 was independently created by me, Louie, with the support from my more than awesome Kickstarters that you can see on the screen now. This project took a really long time to complete, so if you liked it, please let me know by liking the video down below and subscribing and following Louie's Loops on any social media. Click the link on the screen now or down below to go to the next video. Pasta la pizza and happy hooking!